Welcome everybody to narrative and game design. We're going to be talking about the ways in which narrative interacts with game mechanics, the ways in which they clash, the ways in which they can marry, and the ways in which they probably should get a divorce. My name's Carlos Hernandez. I am one of your guests of honor. Thank you. Very happy to be here. CONvergence has just been a revelation. This con is so good. I've just had a delightful time every single day, in part because of the great volunteers like Kyle, who's been moving around. So really, this con is something special, and I'll be looking forward to coming back. In the meantime, though, we're going to do narrative and game design. Now, when I originally thought this panel was going to happen, I thought I'd be able to show a PowerPoint and do a presentation and stuff like that. No PowerPoint in the room. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a game up here that then we're going to analyze, deconstruct, and reconstruct, and use as the basis for our conversation. I'm really hoping that after we play our game up here, this opens up to a wide variety of expertise in the audience. I know we have a ton of game designers in here, and I'd much rather turn this into a colloquy rather than just me, sage on the stage bullshit, blah, blah, blah. I'm an academic, I hear myself talking enough. So it'd be great if we could just turn it into a much more free-flowing conversation. We have a traveling mic that we'll be able to use to facilitate that. But first, let's play a game. The game that we're going to be playing is a game that is based on breaking news from Dropout TV. How many of you know breaking news? Do we know this? Great, okay. So we're going to be playing a version of this called CONvergence News. Our two anchors are going to be Kyle. Give him a round of applause. This ain't easy. And J9. Kyle's a new friend, J9 is a very old and dear friend. And so the way that we are going to do this, for those of you who don't know, this is going to be our teleprompter here. They're going to be reading a news program, basically, in which they are the two anchors. So let me just flash really quickly, because I think you're the first one. Yeah, so J9, you're going to be anchor one. Okay. You're going to be in purple.
Okay.
So you'll see that your name is going to change, though. So you're going to say your name, and then your name will forevermore be the name that's changed, but you'll always be in purple.
Okay.
Your name will be in orange. It'll be Kyle at first, but then it's going to change as you play. All right. And so every time they laugh, smile, or otherwise are unable to continue the broadcast, they are going to be docked a point. To dock their points, we have Claire, my beautiful award-winning wife. No, but she is. She's won the World Fantasy Award twice. This woman is a genius, seriously. And we have Jax on the other side.
Winner of nothing. Thank you.
Winner at life.
Stealer of hearts.
What?
Stealer of hearts and small children at Redfest.
Oh yes, and wives. I've gotten 2 wives over the years.
Okay, so anchors. The way that you win is by having fewer points than the other anchor. So it would behoove you to do things that do not make you laugh, but make the other anchor laugh as well. So remember, you have that goal as well. You two have a win condition as well. So, Claire, you win if you make J9 laugh or smile once.
Impossible.
Just one time.
No.
Jax, you also win, and there could be, of course, multiple winners. If you make this guy
Jax is going to win, everyone.
laugh or smile at least once. Audience, you have a win condition as well.
That would be, if I don't look at him, that would be changed.
Butts. J9. Butts.
Yeah, those of you know, I think we've got like Katie Maravich and Amy Vorpahl. Happening right here. But audience, you also have a win condition. You win if both of them laugh or smile at least 5 times. So your job is to be a good audience that encourages the fervor of laughter and revelry that will make people break character. Okay? So,
Do we win if the audience wins too?
yeah, there are multiple
Bet,
win conditions. So.
Carlos has already won. I'd be doomed.
Well, but you do have separate win conditions. So you don't win if they laugh or smile 5 times, but you specifically don't, like something that you do has to cause laughter or breakage.
Oh, okay,
So
cool.
you have to do this.
Great.
Now, the rules here are, you two, of course, are going to just be speaking from the teleprompter. You might be given physical things to do, but you'll never be required to, like, interact with other people physically. But you may be asked to get up and do a thing as well as read from the teleprompter. You two are not allowed to verbally say anything, nor physically, like you can't throw paper at them or anything like that. But you can make faces, you can jiggle, you can dance. You can do whatever you need to. I mean, I think that camera is rolling for YouTube later, so I'm not sure that you actually want to do that. But, shine on, you crazy giant, like whatever you want.
I've got too many layers to
All right, wait a second. I'm going to get to you.
There isn't much else to do.
And then audience, of course, you're just going to be a good audience. You have 2 tools. You have laughter and applause. So, your laughter and your applause are what you can use to try to get your win condition to break each of them 5 times. Okay? We all set here? All right. So, I, of course, am going to be the teleprompter. I'm going to turn off my mic. Let's make sure your mics are on. Give us a test, Gina.
My mic is on.
Oh, gosh.
I'm gonna do so poorly.
I mean, I always feel like in this game, the people who lose are actually winning. Like, they're the ones who give the audience what they want. Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. Welcome to CONvergence News, where the anchors aren't allowed to smile or laugh. We turn it over now to our anchors.
Welcome to CONvergence News, the show where we have no idea what news we'll be reporting, and we're not allowed to laugh or smile.
My name is Rick and Morty.
Wait, your name is Rick and Morty?
That's right, I'm the flesh and blood and body of both Rick and Morty. Through this skit, my voice will change into perfect impersonation of those cartoon characters. What's your name?
You're not with the vocals.
You said I could when there was a point.
No, you can't speak. You can only make faces.
Oh, I thought it was when they got a point. I could make it.
Oh, that was your buzzer?
That was my buzzer.
That was a nasty buzzer. I love it. Great. Just say that loud.
Well, change in perfect impersonations, those iconic cartoon characters. What's your name?
My name is Tickle Me Helmo. That's because whenever someone asks if they can tickle me, I say, sure, be my guest!
Wait, I can tickle you?
Hell no.
Our top story today, the study reveals that attending CONvergence 2024, burp sound, 2024 are the sexiest mother truckers on the planet.
That's right, Rick and Morty. Scientists from the University of Your Mom spent 10 whole hours popping acid and compiling the study. They came to the unsurprising conclusion that CONvergence attendees know how to work it. Yo, baby, yo, baby, yo!
I didn't see it. Now I'm Pickle Rick. I'm Pickle Rick! You know, Tickle Me Helmo, I also been known on occasion, known to work it on occasion.
No doubt, Pickle Rick. You look like you can shake that thing. Tell the Till the mornings rise. The question is, can you work it more than me? tickle me? Hell no. I am a beloved Christmas toy known for my sick battery-powered hula.
There's only one way to know. We'll each do a dance and let the audience decide by applause which of us can work it harder. Would you like to go first?
More than anything. I am the greatest dancer since Elaine from the Seinfeld episode. Beat that hot shot.
Okay, you just watched me beat it. You?
Judging by the audience response, the winner of that dance-off was nobody.
Oh, and I'm getting breaking news right now that yes, both of us are to report to The Hague immediately to answer for crimes against dance.
Well, it looks like your beloved anchors are going before an international tribunal where we will be sent to rot in prison for decades unaccountable.
Goodbye, freedom! Hello, penal colony. Hey, for old time's sake, can I tickle you?
Hell no! Only I get to tickle me. It's on the prompter.
Oh, she was hanging.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I'm only after that.
But before we go, scorekeepers, please tell us which of us laughed more.
Yes, please tell us.
So that were 2 arms or only one? That last one.
I did 2.
2. Excellent. Okay. Excellent.
So what was the total score? How many
Oh,
times?
let's see.
This is like golf, the higher the negative score, the better, right?
8.
8 times. Okay. 2.
When the first time you left the second time as a follow-up, but I did count it.
Oh, you can't count that twice.
I heard it.
Fine, whatever. I was
Extraordinary.
So, now, did either of you make them laugh? I know you did. So,
Oh, no. Never.
Right.
Not once.
So, winner so far. Winner.
Hey.
And audience, I'm so sorry you tried so hard, you did so well, but this one, pretty tough.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, everybody.
Technically, the total score is 10.
There's a dispute from the
Two
audience.
is 10, and we were supposed to get them together the last 10 times.
Oh, no, it was 5 each, though.
Oh, 5 each.
5 each. 5 each. No.
You won on Kyle, so you get like a half point, like a runner-up.
Yeah, we'll give you 2 victory points for that one. But that's so fun. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Kyle, do you want your scoreboard? Here, that's for you. Oh, apparently it's not.
I'm bad at picking things up, too.
I hope you're not a person.
So now what I want to do is just open up to conversation and talk about what we just experienced. So we start designating what are some clear elements of this game and the way that it worked. How did it involve narrative? How did it have mechanics that did or did not involve narrative? And what can we take out of this that we can extrapolate from? So I'd love to just start a conversation to talk about what did you notice about this game that might be different from other games that you might have expected or thought about to expect when you hear the word game. What do you think about, like when you think about games that maybe this is a little bit different? What do we think? We'll start over here and then I'll come back here.
Oh, I can.
You can-
I can talk up.
Great.
I was going to say the limited amount of interaction with a lot of games, especially free-form games. You've got a lot of interaction back and forth, but in this one it was limited in some ways and unlimited in others.
Yeah, that's a great thing. And I mean, every game has very, very clear limits, right? You know, every game is a limited model of reality in very strict ways. That allows us to do a lot of things, but it also severely curtails what a player can do inside of a game, right? So like one of the things that new game designers often have to think about is how am I going to limit my player? What exact actions can they do? Game designers often talk about the actions people can take, the procedures that govern what happens with those actions. Those sorts of things are essential to the game design experience. So would you say that this is a narrative game, like what you just heard? Would you say it's narrative?
Well, that goes with what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I feel like because it is a written, there's elements of it that are narrative because there's a written aspect to it that's tightly narrative, telling a story of two news anchors. But there's within that like tight narrative, there's room for improv, which is also gamic.
Right. It depends on exactly what you said. Like there is an expectation of narrative that everybody's extremely familiar with. The 30-minute news show is one that is absolutely ingrained in every American's mind for sure, and actually throughout the world. I grew up in a Spanish tradition, and we watched Univision, and those news models follow kind of the same thing. So the idea that all of us know the narrative structure of how these news shows go, even sort of like, it's become very common to have a lighter side, sort of like last segment and things like that. But what this does is it specifically works against that structure, right? The structure of breaking news is all the stuff you would never, ever, ever hear on a news broadcast, but coded as a news broadcast. So it is narrative in that it depends on a narrative structure everybody knows in order to absolutely break that narrative structure. That's part of the fun. That's part of the play that happens there. What did you think about, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say there's a narrative for the characters or the players as well. Like we were talking about earlier, Amy Vorpal is not good at this game. And so we had Kyle, who was setting up a narrative for himself as well, that we were following along as we went. And likewise, the narrative of, J9.
Yeah.
J9 said they were not. And so there was a huge applause when they actually broke.
Right.
And that was a part of that narrative. And it was also almost more satisfying to see J9 break than it was to see Kyle break, because we had an expectation that was broken.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, go ahead.
I thought it was interesting how fun and enjoying yourself is like superficially chided. Like maybe think of something like a Stanley Parable where exploration is criticized by the narrator, and that makes you want to do it more.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Stanley Parable. Like one of the best games. Like you get it for super cheap on Steam now. It's an incredible experience. But yeah, the game, I've often thought this too, like the most fun seems to be watching people break, and you'd think the game would reward that, but it superficially unrewards that, right? And in later seasons of breaking news, they even punish the person who breaks the most, But really, there would be no show if people didn't break. Like if you had 4 J9s there who were just like invulnerable all the time, there would be no show, it would be no fun. It would just actually be a terrible experience. So it's a very interesting game design choice. That's one of the reasons I wanted to point it out, because it's like the game is doing something that you actually don't want the players to do, and game designers out there, you know that's usually not what you want to do. You want mechanics that encourage your players to behave in ways that will promote the most fun and the most interaction and the most interesting choices. So breaking news is like a really interesting, I would say, exception in that way, in that it's asking you not to play the game as well, or else the show will go off the air. Like nobody will want to watch it. It's very interesting. It's a great point. that you break up there. One of the things that happens with narrative design, oftentimes, especially in games, is that either the narrative is tacked on to the experience of the game and it feels like maybe it is just tacked on, maybe it's just a very superficial skin that doesn't seem integrated with the mechanics. Or sometimes, and this was like a criticism in game design in like the early 2000s, where people were, especially like in game design theory, were really trying to adamantly separate narrative from ludic experiences. They were trying to, people like Jesper Juhl, who's a narrative / game critic at NYU for a long time, would argue that ludic experience is very much sometimes diametrically opposed to narrative experience, and the goals are so different from each other that they shouldn't even be thought of in the same kind of aesthetic space. We've moved past false binaries, I think, like that. Like, I think game studies, especially early on, was trying to find its own identity, and making an enemy of narrative was one of the ways in which it was trying to do that. I think we've reached a different kind of place now. And breaking news, I think, occupies a really sophisticated way of actually trying to compromise that space of, here we're doing a thing where the mechanics don't seem to support what the game is really trying to do in the largest sense, but it's also where a lot of the fun is. It's a little bit of schadenfreude, right? And it's a little bit of enjoying other people's mishaps. So you'll notice that the improv game wasn't just based on the words that they were reading on the teleprompter. I made them dance. Game designers out there, Jane McGonigal? Jane McGonigal, she had a not video game in the traditional sense, but a game that used where people would get up and dance and kind of like in a very safe space embarrass themselves. Because embarrassing yourself with friends, like going to karaoke and singing the way I sing, is one of the ways in which we build bonds. It allows you to go past those boundaries and share something with friends that is maybe something you wouldn't do in other sorts of spaces. So the fact that, thank you for dancing, both of you, you were wonderful. But public dance is one of the ways in which you all can sort of like share together that kind of like experience. So all of this is meant to say, like, there's a lot going on in this game that has to do much more with fun than it does with winning. And victory conditions, I think of when you think of like Euro games and the ways in which you will spend a great deal of time at the end of the game calculating victory points. That is definitely one way in which games work. But when it comes to narrative design, one of the things that a story can do is lead you to interesting spaces in which the behaviors that the game is encouraging might not necessarily align with winning, but aligns with the best kind of experience that you have. So here is a question I want to put in front of you now. Let's think about this for a second. What exactly, like granularly, is fun? Like, what is that word?
Serotonin and endorphins. Chemicals in the brain.
Yeah. So certainly there's a chemical experience.
Serotonin
right?
and endorphins. So great.
I would say being engaged and interested. Well, yeah, mostly being engaged with the idea in a way that is not unpleasant.
Okay, engaged in a way that is not unpleasant. Claire, what is the movie that you quote with the wholly absorbed?
It's that wonderful Ruth Wilson Jane Eyre when he asks, "Were you happy when you painted these?" And she says, "I was not unhappy. I was wholly absorbed." That's flow state.
Flow state.
Yeah, the flow state, right?
A moment of completion or surprise.
Ooh, I like that. So completion, so you feel the satisfaction of having accomplished something, or surprise in the delightful sense, I'll assume, because there are bad surprises too, but that idea of surprise that delights and invites more thinking or more opportunity for thinking. I think these are all really good, useful definitions that we can start to build on, but fun is also, a dirty word in a lot of game design, certainly outside of games as well. It seems like it's decadent, frivolous, sometimes even tawdry to think about fun in that way. And it's definitely like one of the sticking points when it comes to thinking about like what games are supposed to do. And certainly the kinds of fun that people have are myriad. We can have all sorts of different kinds of levels of entertainment. Wholly engaged in something might be more the strategy game, kind of like I felt, I was using every neuron in my brain, and that made me feel like fully activated. I was using myself to my full potential. That's one kind of fun. And then, laughing at Kyle is another kind of fun.
Cards Against Humanity. I think utterly vulgar and outre.
Right. That kind of fun is absolutely about building friendships and trusting people enough to engage in activities that you wouldn't engage with in a larger audience, right? All right, so here's what I want to put in front of you right now. I just want to engage in a little bit of a mental activity. What I want you to do is imagine not a full game or anything. I don't want you to imagine like a fully wrought experience. But if you wanted to have fun with the person who is next to you right now, like what is a fun thing that you could do? Just imagine this for a second. Like if I was asking you to turn to either a friend who's next to you or someone that's new, what would be a fun thing that you can do? I'm just gonna give people 10 seconds to think, and then we'll just think about fun things we could do. Be good, you two. I see evil happening over here.
You said this was a 21 plus panel? After dark.
We're dropping the disco ball. Right. But did you want to go first?
Oh, I was going to say sex.
The eternal.
Hi.
Well, when you said it, Claire started scratching my back, and I enjoyed that a lot. So that was fun.
So, yeah.
Well, Janine and I have often in the past, reading each other's tarot cards for fun. I was thinking anything tactile where you flip cards or like throw runes or shiny stones and like make up stories. We often are making up stories or doing silly voices and, talking about deep emotions and history, but also cracking each other up, like in a very, but using props in that sense,
Nice.
I have a real answer if you wanted it. Something.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay.
It also depends on where you're at, because I do improv, right? But I gotta say, when I am tapped out on energy, as much of an ambivert as I am, if you want me to go and do improv while I have no energy and I've been on survival mode for a month because I'm a teacher, it's less fun.
Yeah.
So it kind of has to scratch that itch of where you're at, introvert, extrovert, where your body's at, where your mind's at, where your heart's at.
So with your neighbor, you would check in with them to see what kind of fun is good for both of you, right? And this is great for RPGs and things like that, where now we are doing the right thing and making sure that everybody's on the same page for the type of game that you want to play. These safety tools that have come out in the last 10, 12 years, I think are just one of the greatest outcomes of RPGs, and it came out of that community. A, because of a need, but also because people were really searching for solutions of how can we do the magic thing that we love in RPGs, which is often outre in some way, but make sure that nobody gets hurt in the process. I am a kid, from the 70s and 80s. I was playing D&D. The red box is my box. I think there were editions before that, but that was my box. And I was just reading in Smithsonian Magazine a review of Dungeons & Dragons the early days. And when Dave Arneson was talking about what he was imagining for Dungeons & Dragons, he was imagining, instead of having a war game where the players would be sided against each other, the players would gather and fight a common foe who would be, and this is his word, particularly sadistic game master. And I mean, I think it's extremely important for those of you who remember early Dungeons and Dragons, that that's where the game comes from. That part of the fun that Arneson was imagining was a dungeon master who was out to kill you. Like, sadistic was the word that he used. I don't think most of us in 2024 believe that the best dungeon masters of Dungeons and Dragons are particularly sadistic. Like, I think the expansion of the audience and the sophistication of the narratives that are being told now require a different type of narrative guide through them. And so, like, Critical Role people, we've watched Critical Role, we know, like, have you seen how Matt Mercer reacts to when a character dies? I mean, the man weeps on television in front of millions of people. Like, he openly weeps. We just lost Fresh Cut Grass, RIP, and that loss was something that the whole cast was feeling and reacting to. Now, they have their own rules. I think they play a pretty rough game myself. Like, I think the Critical Role game is a pretty tough game. But that game, what it does is puts in front of us some really sophisticated storytellers. I mean, amazing actors and improvers who have their own agreement system, and we get to voyeuristically watch how they want to play. Like, I think they're pretty tough on each other, but that's how they want to play, and we get to watch it, and it creates these kinds of moments. But even in those moments, what we see is an interplay between Dungeon Master and player that we wouldn't have seen in the 80s. My darling wife bought me because I wanted it, and she paid too much for it, but I still love it. The original Tomb of Horrors, because I had it as a kid, and I wanted to read through the rules again. And Gary Gygax is a dick. Like, seriously. Like, he just writes dick things in the text of Tomb of Horrors. Like, there's a false demi-lich, where he comes out, he looks like a mummy. It's a hard enough fight, whatever. And what Gygax writes there in that section is, it's like, and if your players, I'm going to paraphrase, but if your players are too stupid to realize that this relatively challenging battle wasn't the actual demi-lich, then just fold the module away and put it away until you can find a smarter group. Like, he writes that almost verbatim in the text. It's like, motherfucker. Damn, son. There is a little bit of lore behind that, though. So, like, he created Tomb of Horrors specifically because people were going up to him at the Origins game fair and saying, my character's too strong, you can't even kill my character, I've got too many things, blah, blah, blah. And so, this was his response to it. But it's just a level of toxicity that I don't think we're into as much. Okay, I want to put a definition in front of you right now. I've been thinking about this because I work primarily in narrative, both as a writer, but also in the kinds of games that I'm most interested in. But I think there's an important validity to the idea of making sure that mechanics are doing mechanical things, narrative is doing narrative things, and when they combine, they're done in a way that's so thoughtful and integral to the experience that it's hard to parse them until you actually really sit down and think about them. They just feel so naturally flowing between the two that you're not quite as sure. And the example I would give for this is, Dungeons and Dragons, just to use that example again, is very much a resource management game, right? You're managing your hit points, but hit points are also a resource. You don't want to preserve hit points and waste potions of healing when, somebody else might be able to heal you later if you think you're going to manage. So it's a game of wagering and resource management, but it is skinned so utterly and thoroughly with fantasy that many people take a long, long time to figure out, oh, there's actually this underlying mechanism that I could think about without even thinking about Dungeons and/or Dragons. It took me a long time, anyway. But so what I wanted to do is put a definition in front of you and see what we think about this. Okay, so, narrative is humanity's most important intellectual tool for understanding the world. This is premise one. A game is a model of reality that allows for manipulation, interaction, and experimentation. So it's a model you create. But models by design are oversimplifications. So we use narrative to make sense of games. In other words, if you're thinking about the Venn diagram of narrative and game, a narrative is the way in which, in the big circle, we make sense of everything that we have. And inside of that large circle is the game that we've created that is a simplification of reality that we study. So, if we think about, for instance, Tetris, and we think about the ways in which those blocks fall and we try to align them, we can definitely imagine a Tetris that has no narrative. The Tetris that we saw in the arcades, it had Russian music and some a little bit of juiciness to it that was meant to be inviting, but it's unnecessary, right? You could just play Tetris as blocks falling, no music, and just try to map that out. And it would be, a timed test kind of experiment. But you couldn't talk about Tetris without talking about your experience of the game. So what narrative does is it allows that experience of whatever happened to you in Tetris to be passed on to others. It also allows you to think about how you yourself are going to make sense of what Tetris means. So Tetris doesn't care. Tetris doesn't care about your feelings. I mean, I think all of us who have played Tetris knows how little Tetris cares about our feelings. But we care about our feelings. So when you tell someone, man, Tetris is driving me crazy. I keep dreaming about it at night. When I go to sleep, I still see Tetris blocks falling. You've heard about the Tetris phenomenon in dreams, right? Like Tetris can take over your mind in that way, but you can't take over Tetris's mind because there is no mind. There is just the mathematical underpinnings that are portrayed in the way that it is. So what narrative is good for is making sense of games, which is why when games are narrativized really well, they seem integral. The narrative allows you entree into the complex systems that they represent. And again, I know we have a lot of good game designers in here. When you're designing a game and you find the theme or the skin of it that is going to make everything so clear that people barely need instructions, like, oh yeah, because you gave me this meatball and it knows it looks like a human, I know that I have to treat it more humanely than this pile of brick or whatever. You get a different code of semiotic information that way, and that code allows you to parse a ton of information super quickly, just like narrative does. See, the thing is that the world is immensely complex, and if we didn't have these agreed upon structures in narrative to help us understand it, we just wouldn't. So we have this great complex system. But a game isn't there to do that. A game is much smaller, and it's meant to give you a simulation of some kind of experience. So one of our favorite games is Mysterium. And so Mysterium, a great combination of like Dixit and Clue, right? So you've got these, evocative cards, you've got, a very clear job to do, figure out who done it, where done it, and with what done it, by a certain clock. But the question I would like to pose to you is like, if you had to identify the central mechanic of Mysterium, the one on which all the other mechanics depend, what would that mechanic be? It's kind of hard to describe, right? Do you have an idea?
My experience with Mysterium is deep. I used to run a game store. We used to do corporate gaming experiences where we get the Fortune 100, Target, that's all the big companies in the Twin Cities. They pay big money for me and my staff to teach them to play this game.
Amazing.
So non-board gaming people, very much corporate, because these are like C-suite level people and everything. And a lot of these people aren't nerd communities or gamers, and one thing we struggled, Mysterium was one of the harder games we taught them.
Really?
They did really well with Pandemic because it was resource management. We taught them Mysterium, some of them, the departments that did really well were like the marketing department that had artistic backgrounds. But when you got like the accounting execs or the C-level execs who thought in like ROI and all the corporate BS stuff about money, the lack of their creative descriptions of the cards meant that, so the key mechanic is communication, but it's abstract communication. And people who think very literally in like profit and loss statements struggle hard at that game.
Yeah, and I watched probably a good 120 games of Mysterium played by groups like this to come to this conclusion. Amazing. And it's also, just for those of you who don't know the game, it's, that was fantastic.
But when I play the game with like artists, when I play the game with like a bunch of improvisers or set designer or people who work in theater, which is my people, we fly through the game and solve it fast, and people like, how do you figure that out from that word? It was like, oh, just, there was almost like a sixth sense communication, for lack of a better term, that I think creatives had that people who think more literally didn't, because Mysterium, because of the nature of the art of those cards, forces you to think abstractly.
Yeah. And just for people who don't know Mysterium, basically there's a ghost. And the ghost can only communicate by handing people cards. Ghost isn't allowed to speak. And these cards are beautiful and macabre and mysterious, full of mystery, kind of slightly dark in their palette, as opposed to like Dixit. And so the ghost will hand you one or two or however many cards, and they only have a certain number to draw from. From that, you're supposed to determine on the board which person this card seems to align with. Some people focus more on color. Others focus on shared objects. Other people still might focus on a bevy of different parts of information that are included on the cards. So this is the thing, it's a game of empathy. It's a game where suddenly you not only understand what the card says, but you understand the person who is giving you that card. It's a remarkable way to base a game, and it's hard to even imagine that game being designed maybe even before Dixit, when you could create that kind of framework. But it ends up to be a really interesting narrative. So the idea is that the narrative of Mysterium sets you up for a seance-like experience. It's asking you to reach through the veil and see information that would be hard to interpret because it's dreamlike, it's phantasmagorical. So that kind of merger between the narrative and what it's asking you to do, I mean, I can see why they were asking corporate types to play it, because they probably needed to work a little bit on developing those skills. So it's a really interesting teaching tool, and you're a person who uses games in the classroom.
Yes.
And because you do that, you've probably started thinking about ways in which not only you can find games that would work in the classroom, but also how to explain them well to children so that you could learn them quickly and then use them. Could you talk about a game or two?
Sure.
Let's see. I worked at a game store called Air Traffic Heights and Games and Marbles. I've worked as a escape room lead as well, and I got to tell you, sometimes kids get it better than adults. But I would say I think my favorite story is from my first year of teaching, and there was this Easy Simulations from Scholastic, and it was D&D, but like set to the tune of the Civil War. And so the kids had to create a character and figure out what their class was, which was their job, and it gave them different stats. It was D&D, And we were sailing on the high seas, and this kid was like, oh, well, yada, 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 yada. I was like, oh, yeah, you ate some bad meat. That's unfortunate for you, buddy. Roll. And he did, and he got like a 1. And I was like, oh, and the whole class, what's really fun is that the whole class had characters that they were invested in. They had storylines. They had been writing in their diaries and everything. And this kid who'd been really cocky, and so his character had been really cocky, was cocking off. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. You went overboard. Roll again, because I was trying to be nice. So I roll again, because you got a 1. I roll again to see if you can cry for help. You got a 2. The benevolent makes Raspberry Hill, gave him one more try, and he got a 1. Yes! But the beautiful thing is, by this time, we had a wall of the dead, where if their character died, you had to staple it to the wall. And part of this, of the narrative, was to teach the kids, yeah, it's easy to die back then, isn't it? It was loaded, it was great. And so if they had died, they became a ghost. But so like, we knew that when somebody died, you stand up and you take off a hat and you salute. And we sang the do-do-do. And so at this beautiful critical moment, I had a whole classroom of 5th graders who just automatically stood up and followed the narrative. I liked it better than Oregon Trail. It was so personal, right?
Yeah.
Trail.
I mean, because Oregon Trail has some narrative,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have a bunch of 5th graders solemnly saluting your dead ballet soldier.
I actually had some kids for their.
sorry.
Oh, sorry. I had some kids who, for their final project, they created a one-shot within the game to bring the rest of the class through. And so they researched the scenario and the narrative of this civil or Revolutionary War battle and did Battle Bull Run as a one-shot as 5th graders
Amazing.
because they were more interested in that.
Yeah, and you know, when they do that, I mean, so those of you who know a little bit about games in the classroom probably know James G. and the way that he talked about the different things that you can do with games in the classroom. He focuses mostly on video games, but a lot of this is applicable to role-playing games. And one of the things he says is like when people are getting to the point where they're creating and they're modding, now they are invested.
That's the last step of learning.
That's right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's the last step of learning is to create. You learn, you assimilate, you do me, us, you, and that's like the last step of you doing it on your own.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a famous educational pyramid that puts creativity up at the top, where you've taken all the information, you've assimilated it, you can analyze it, and now you can use it to create your own thing. So that sounds like a huge win.
It was so much fun.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that though, because I feel like the dice rolling in that is very not this current generation of game design. You know, a lot of game design takes dice and allows you to place it or use them in different ways other than just pure randomization. That is a little bit of an older trend in a lot of game design, and we've moved a lot away from that. And yet, there is a reason why D&D hangs on to the role-playing world with 2 clenched fists.
Such an interesting thing, because that's about control. If I can control the outcome of this, or more narrowly, like see what this could be, instead of having a nat 1 or a nat 20, then it's much easier to control the experience. Whereas with that old rolling to see what happens, it's leave it up to chance.
Right. In the role-playing game that my wife and I designed, we moved away from dice entirely, and we tried to make it super easy, first of all, for first-time role players, by making it as easy as Candyland. You have 4 cards on your character sheet, and they're very much like Mysterium cards. They have ghoulish sayings on them, and they have lots of mysterious art and things like that. But they all have borders that are clearly identified by color and other markers to let you know what they are. You have 4 of them. There are 7 suits total in the deck, and what you do is you draw a card. If you match, success. If you don't match, you're fucked. Like basically, and the way you do is you just narrate from there, and the cards are there to be evocative ways to help you with the storytelling. So it's to take away a lot of the variation and pressure of trying to learn a massive rule set before you actually get to what I think is the most fun in role-playing games, which is the mayhem. The wild situations that you find yourself in that no rulebook could possibly have accounted for. All right, we have a few minutes. Let me make sure on our time here.
11 minutes.
11 minutes. I would love to just start opening up the floor to ideas of whatever you want to talk about when it comes to the interactions between narrative and game design. Got a hand right here, and then we'll go right here.
When you were talking about, how the randomness in D&D affects it,
one thing I was thinking of is Pokemon, especially with Pokemon Nuzlocke, because that originally started as almost baby D&D again, but not really, like naming Pokemon and fighting random Pokemon. And some people, and like having a story behind it, and some people have gone so mathematically deep into it that they can look at any situation and know anything that could happen in every situation and how to get out of it.
Interesting. So do you feel like it's a solved game, sort of like checkers?
It's not quite a solved game, but a lot closer to a solved game.
Right.
Meanwhile, with the randomness of D&D, anything can happen.
Right.
With randomness of Pokemon, yes, there's randomness, but at that level, you probably know what could happen, and you know how to plan around it, and you're not as concerned about it happening.
Right. Right. Yeah, the more solved the game is, the fewer choices you have, right? You know, basically, if there's anything a game should have, it's interesting choices for a player in any given game state. So, you know, you look at the game state, you're like, okay, I have these different things, I'm not quite sure how this is going to play out, but based on my experience in the games and the risks I'm willing to take, here's what I want to try. And as soon as you get into this closed state where it's like, well, really there's one good choice, you know, then you're not really playing the game.
And I would say there are interesting choices you could make at that level, but there's nothing interesting story-wise. Yeah, you can predict and tell what can happen, and you can understand what's going to happen, and you know where the story's going to go. So there is no story.
Right, so there is no story. Right. I think you were first, and then here.
Sure. I would just want to pitch for anybody who hasn't read it and wants basically like an education in game design that came out like 10 years ago and has inspired a whole wave of hacks ever since. Buy the game Apocalypse World, the second edition, by Vincent Baker and McGann Baker and their kids. It is a very different way than just sort of pass-fail structures to narrative. It's immediate, role-playing games, it argues, are a mediated conversation, and
nice.
it's about coming at it from that angle.
Yeah. And you can download Powered by the Apocalypse Rules. It's like a 10 or 11 page supplement for free as well. So we'll go here and then here.
And then Carlos behind you.
Oh, here.
Mine's actually a kind of question for you.
Yeah.
So I interact on a daily basis with a fair number of game designers. There's a lot of them in the Twin Cities. I married one.
Yeah. That's a lot of interaction.
It's a lot of interaction. But I also like, and it's never occurred to me to sort of pose this question. All of the games that I grew up with, or not all of, but many of, had that win, lose, edgelord, you know, all of that. And now we have these wonderful, cozy, beautiful games that just feel like you're drinking a hot cup of tea.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious kind of what your feeling on this new wave of cozy games is, because from my perspective, it's amazing because I can just, you know, it's like wrapping myself up in a blanket.
Right.
But then from the perspective of writing it, how do you write a game that feels like you're drinking a cup of tea?
It's a great question. So, I mean, I have a couple of instinctual questions, but we also have your game designer husband right next to you, so I'd like to hear that too, if you'd be willing to respond. Do you have thoughts on this, or are you, well, let me just hand this here.
I mostly write games where terrible things happen to you.
Yeah, you're right.
He's not a good joke.
I like to write descriptions of food and NPCs dying in horrible ways.
Yes, But I mean, so descriptions of food, for instance, a lot of cozy games do feature. Like I bought a tea-based RPG at last year's Gen Con. You know, it's just basically like making tea, going to friends' houses, that sort of thing. There are things that are not exactly cozy, but different kinds of consequences, like a quiet ear. That, you know, basically allow for a lot of fertile creation, and really the pleasure of the game isn't centered around win and loss. So there is going to be loss, and there is going to be, you know, there are going to be consequences to deal with. It's really much more about what kind of society you're creating. So it becomes much more personal and value-based. So what I would say is, like, when it comes to cozy, the aesthetic is much less mechanical and much more creating a group that you trust to engage in a slower paced, more personal type of game, maybe one that isn't so invested in a magic circle. So the magic circle is a place that you jump into where, if you play Grand Theft Auto 5, I'm not going to judge you. But you were, shooting people, you were running over people, you were doing things that I hope most of you don't do in your everyday life. But this is what the magic circle is for, to let you engage in these kinds of behaviors. But in the cozy experience, you're much less likely to do those sorts of things and do things that are much more aligned. So you have this kind of like dotted line around your magic circle in the sphere. So, there are a million different games, a million different ways that you can design a cozy experience, but I think the first thing you would think about is like, how do you create ways for people who are happy to be a little more intimate with each other, be more intimate with each other? Okay, so help me keep track. Over here? Okay.
Now, I've always hated reading rule books or doing tutorial levels. And when I played, I'm more of a video game person, but when I played the, I think it was the 2010 or 2013 reboot of Tomb Raider, has anyone played that? That first level, you're in a ship and it's sinking, and the tutorial level just funnels you right into the action and shows you as you progress through that level how to survive it. And it was like, oh my gosh, narrative can be used for people like me who hate rule books, hate tutorial levels. It was beautiful. I'd love to see that more.
Such a good point. My first experience was the trailer for Left 4 Dead. I don't know if you saw the extended trailer for Left 4 Dead, but by the time I saw that trailer, I didn't even think I realized that that's like, oh, I know what that zombie does. Oh yeah, we can't put on a light right here or else the zombies will start rushing. But I knew it as soon as I just watched the frickin' trailer, to do it. So like, I love that idea. I've never formulated it that way. Thank you for that. That's really, really helpful. So I see, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay?
I just wanted to mention one game that I really enjoy that has it has the gameplay but a very loose narrative, and it kind of encourages you to build narrative yourself. RimWorld, if anyone's heard of it. Yeah. You got your gameplay and it just says this happens, and then I'm part of a Facebook group and people are like building stories from their colonists and stuff. Like all that really is happening is raiders attack you, and you're like, oh man, Sid died over here. He was a great cook and stuff.
RimWorld, it's for those of you, do people know RimWorld? But I mean, RimWorld is like SimCity said fuck you. Like, it's like, we're gonna build all these people that you get attached to a little bit, and then we're just gonna watch them deteriorate in so many different ways, and there are like 100 million different statistics going on beneath the surface. It is an amazing game to watch, and I've never gotten good at it. I've never quite had the time to devote to it, but I love watching videos of that, and also of Dwarf Fortress. Like those of you who know Dwarf, that one's even better. I had a friend who was playing Dwarf Fortress who managed to set his Dwarf King on fire, and they couldn't put out the fire, but he was also invulnerable. So he was like the Fire King who was going more and more insane because he was suffering, but he couldn't die. And so basically he started running around and setting his entire Dwarf Fortress on fire. I feel like those games have so much opportunity for narrative description after the fact, and it's all like, look how much my life sucked when I played this game. Okay. So, remind me, here, there was one other here?
Probably only have time for 2 more, probably 1 or 2 more.
Okay, let's do this and we'll let you in.
Sure. I think like one of the most effective things I've seen crop up in game design recently is specifically in the RPG scene, is rewarding failure. Specifically in Powered by the Apocalypse games, things like that, where if you fail, something interesting happens narratively. Also in the video game scene, you have something like Hades, where the entire roguelike structure is built upon getting a successful run.
Yeah.
But Hades sort of turns this on its head, because even when you fail, you get narrative rewards. You find out more about the characters around you. You find out more about the protagonist, and I think that's something really interesting that makes games a lot more accessible for people, because a lot of people are afraid to play games because they're afraid to fail.
Yeah.
But when you fail and something interesting happens as well, it makes it better.
Absolutely.
Teaching us how to fail forward.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, like, one of the things that all games should do is encourage you to play again. You know, like that's, if you play a game once and you beat it the first time, game sucks. So what you want to do is have a game that encourages that, and I think modern design has really leaned into that in the best possible way. Hades especially, because there are people who can do speedruns, and in minutes, you know, because they've just gotten that good, they can win, but they will miss the whole game, you know, because many of the rewards are built into dying, interacting with people, and the rewards tend to be narrative rewards. We didn't even cover that, how narrative itself can be a reward for good gameplay. So thank you for saying that.
Does anybody else want to go?
You get the last word.
Cool. I was just gonna say, what you said about giving it actual, like the tutorial actual meaning is something, and actually failing forward is something that you're seeing, that I'm seeing mirrored in education as well. As opposed to, this is what this thing is, and this is what this thing is. The teacher can go, hey kid, you should put vinegar and baking soda together and see what happens. I promise it's safe. And then, right? And so there's a much bigger hook, and there's failing forward. It's like growth mindset that's being taught in schools much more. And so it's really interesting to hear in game design the same parallel like steps forward in teaching that education has been doing as well.
So great.
Yeah.
So as we end today, let's all leave with the spirit of growth mindset. Go out there, play some games, have a great con, everyone, and thank you so much.
Woo!